The silence. Before the storm, you don't remember the exact moment the silence grew louder than the noise in your life. But it happened. Somewhere between chasing what others called success and surviving days that bled into nights, something shifted. You stopped recognizing the person in the mirror, not because they changed, but because you were never really allowed to meet them. You wore the right smile, said the right things, followed the script. You did what was expected, what was safe, what wouldn't shake the world too much. And, in doing so, you buried yourself beneath layers of silence and performance. But tonight, it's different. You're sitting alone, far from the world, and for the first time, there's no background noise. No one clapping, no one watching. Just the echo of your breath, and a question you've run from your whole life. Who am I when no one's watching? The answer doesn't come easily. It drips in slowly, like the first rain after a long drought. You feel it before you understand it. A tightness in your chest, a pull in your gut, a whisper in your bones that says, there's more. Not out there, but inside you. Beneath the layers of shame, fear, comparison. Beneath the scars. You've convinced yourself are too ugly to show. You were born with fire in your soul, but life taught you to smother it, to blend in, not burn too bright. You were told that your dreams were unrealistic, that your feelings were too much, that your voice was too loud or too quiet, too emotional or too cold. So you adapted. You survived, but you didn't live. And now the silence has become a mirror. It's forcing you to look, not at who they said you should be, but at who you could have been if you hadn't spent so long apologizing for your existence. You remember flashes, moments, tiny rebellions where your soul tried to scream through. Your skin, that one time you stood up for yourself, the day you almost said no, the hour you cried in a car and promised you'd never settle again. But promises fade when you're tired of fighting. And God knows, you're tired. Still, there's a flicker left. A tiny ember inside your chest that refuses to die. It's been there since the beginning. Waiting. Not for permission, but for you. For you to stop running from yourself. For you to finally break. Not break down, but break open. Because pain, for all its cruelty, is also an invitation. To shed the skin that was never yours. To stop being who they told you to be, and start becoming who you were always meant to be. This is your moment. Not tomorrow. Not after another failure. Not after someone else believes in you. Now, right now, in the stillness, in the quiet, in the place where nothing is left except you. And that's enough. Because the story doesn't begin with applause or grand victories. It begins with a choice. Whisper. A decision to stand, even when your legs shake. To breathe, even when the air feels thick with doubt. To rise, not because you're ready, but because it's time. The ghosts you carry, you wake up the next morning feeling different. Not better, not healed, just aware. Aware of the weight on your chest, the kind that sleep doesn't erase. It's not a physical burden, but it's real. It's the weight of everything you've carried but never named. The ghosts that follow you, not in shadows, but in your reflection. They're quiet, but constant. The voice that tells you you're not good enough. That's not your voice. It's a ghost. The memory of someone who made you feel small, of a moment where you weren't chosen, of all the times you were too much or not enough for someone else's version of love. You try to move, but it's like walking through fog. Every step forward drags pieces of the past with it. That betrayal, that failure, that one night you don't talk about, the time you broke someone, the time someone broke you and never apologized. These ghosts, they don't scream, they whisper, You'll mess it up again. No one stays. You're just pretending to be strong. But here's what they don't know. You've heard them so often that their voices have lost their power. Familiarity isn't strength. It's a trap. And you're finally starting to see it. You're not weak because you feel pain. You're not broken because you still remember. And you're not lost just because the road ahead is still blurred. The truth is, you've survived more than most people will ever understand. You've smiled when your heart was in pieces. You've shown up when your soul wanted to disappear. You've carried others when you could barely stand yourself. That isn't weakness, that's endurance. But endurance isn't the same as healing. To heal, you'll have to face the things you buried. Not just walk past them, but walk through them. Look each ghost in the eyes and say, I see you, I remember, but you don't own me anymore. Because carrying pain isn't bravery, letting it go is, and letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It means refusing to let the past become your permanent home. It means building a future that isn't defined by the echoes of your hurt, but by the rhythm of your courage. It won't happen in a day. You'll want to go back, to numb, to distract, to pretend you're fine. But numbness is just another ghost, a silent killer that convinces you peace is too far away. So don't numb. Feel, let it ache, let it burn, let it scream through your body until the silence becomes unbearable, and then scream back. With everything you are, with every ounce of defiance you've stored inside, because the ghosts may live in your story, but they don't get to write the ending. The mirror never lies. You stand in front of the mirror, not to fix your hair or straighten your clothes, but to look, really look. And what stares back isn't just a face. It's a timeline. You see the version of you that once believed in magic. The kid who dreamed without shame, laughed without checking the room first, cried without apology. You see the teenager who tried too hard to belong, bending, folding, erasing themselves to fit into spaces never meant to hold their fire. You see the adult who learned to survive by staying silent. But beneath all of that, beneath the layers of time and trauma, there's something else. A flicker, a pulse. The original version of you, untouched by the world, unfiltered by judgment. Still there, still waiting. That version never left. The mirror doesn't care about your resume. It doesn't care who left you on red, who betrayed you, or what the world thinks you're worth. It doesn't care about titles or trauma responses, or the mask you wear so well. It shows you the truth, raw, ruthless, and unfiltered. And the truth is this: you've been running, not from others, not even from pain. You've been running from yourself, because facing yourself means acknowledging everything: the strength, the sabotage, the brilliance, the bitterness, the light you carry, and the shadows you feed. It means accepting that while you weren't to blame for what broke you, you are responsible for what you build now. That's the part no one prepares you for. Healing isn't a sunrise. It's a reckoning. It's sitting with the parts of yourself you were told to hate. The ones that cry too easily, dream too big, love too deeply. It's forgiving yourself for being human, for breaking, for hurting, for staying too long or walking away too soon. It's choosing to love the reflection, not just when it's smiling, but when it's shattered. You raise your hand, almost instinctively, and touch the glass. It's cold, but the fire inside your chest is not. You don't need anyone to validate what you see. You don't need applause for showing up for yourself. You don't need permission to rebuild. All you need is a decision: to stop shrinking, to stop waiting, to stop treating your life like something that happens to you instead of something you can create. Because the world will keep spinning, with or without your voice in it. But don't you dare go silent. Not now. Not after everything. Don't hide your fire to make others comfortable. Don't dim your light just because someone else went blind staring at it. Your power was never meant to be palatable. It was meant to be felt, and the first person who needs to feel it is you. So look again. One more time. And this time, don't just see the pain. See the possibility. You're not too far gone. You're not too late. You are exactly where your story was always meant to change. When the world turns its back, there's a moment that breaks you in a way nothing else can. It's not when you fail. It's not when life doesn't go your way. It's when the people you believed in stop believing in you. You don't forget that feeling. You can't. It lingers, like smoke after a fire, long after the flames are gone. The moment they walked away, the silence after the betrayal, the shift in their voice when they started doubting you, when the warmth turned cold, and suddenly you were the only one clapping for yourself. That moment, it hurts deeper than you thought possible, because it wasn't just rejection. It was disorientation. It made you question if you ever mattered to them, if your dreams were delusions, if maybe you really aren't enough. And then you start shrinking, not visibly, not all at once, but slowly, secretly. You stop sharing your ideas. You dull your energy. You become careful with your truth, not out of wisdom but out of fear, because being ignored hurts. But being laughed at, that scars something sacred. But let me tell you something no one else did. Being misunderstood is not a curse. It's a sign you're onto something they can't see yet. You were never meant to be universally understood. You were never meant to be everyone's cup of comfort. Your vision wasn't given to a committee. It was planted in you, and only you. That loneliness you feel, it's not proof that you're wrong. It's the cost of choosing yourself when the world wants you to blend in. And still, here you are, breathing, moving, waking up in a world that's not cheering for you, but not letting that stop you either. That's power, because anyone can smile when they're surrounded by praise. But it takes something divine to keep going in. Silence. To build when no one believes. To plant seeds in soil you're not even sure is fertile, because something inside you refuses to quit. That something, it's not just hope. It's truth. A truth so fierce it doesn't need confirmation. A knowing so loud it silences doubt. It says, even if no one sees it now, they will. But here's the secret most people never discover. You don't need them to. You don't need the world's validation to start. You don't need their approval to grow. You don't need applause to be legendary. What you need is to stop asking for directions to places they've never been. You are not lost. You are not broken. You are becoming. So when the world turns its back, don't chase it. Turn toward yourself instead. Because you've got something they can't take, can't define, and will never fully understand unless you show them. And you will. Not out of revenge, but out of radiance. Because some of the brightest souls weren't born in the spotlight. They were forged in the dark. The breaking point. There comes a night when everything inside you caves in. Not just sadness, not just frustration. It's heavier than that. It's the kind of night where the weight of it all, the memories, the regrets, the doubts, presses so hard against your chest that even breathing feels like rebellion. You lie awake, staring at the ceiling, your heart thudding like a slow drum. You don't cry. Not because you're strong, but because the tears stopped coming a long time ago. Your past tears, past words, past pretending. This is your breaking point, and breaking points don't look like dramatic scenes from movies. Sometimes they're quiet. Sometimes they look like dishes left unwashed, messages left unread, calls you don't return. They look like apathy, like silence, like numbness wrapped in a forced smile. You thought strength was about enduring, taking hit after hit and still standing. But now, for the first time, you wonder, what if strength isn't how long you can take it? But how brave you are when you finally let it go. You've carried everything: expectations, guilt, failure, silence. You've made your pain digestible so others wouldn't choke on it. You minimized your chaos so no one else would be uncomfortable. And somewhere in that sacrifice, you lost your voice. But tonight, something changes. Not because you're suddenly healed, not because the pain disappears, but because you finally say it, out loud, or maybe just in your head. I can't keep doing this. And that sentence? That's not defeat. That's truth. That's the crack where the light enters. It's the first honest thing you've told yourself in a long time, that this version of life, this constant survival mode, isn't living, and you deserve more than just getting through the day. You deserve peace without exhaustion, joy without guilt, rest without the fear of falling behind, but no one's going to hand that to you. There's no miracle coming in the mail, no savior with a script that finally makes sense of it all. There's just you, standing at the edge of everything you've known and everything you've feared, and you have two choices. You can fall apart and stay there, or you can fall apart and rebuild. Not as a polished version of what they want, but as you, unfiltered, unapologetic, unafraid of starting over. Because sometimes the breaking is necessary. Sometimes the floor has to fall out from under you, so you'll stop clinging to the ceiling you mistook for the sky. This is not your end. This is your reckoning. Your collapse is not a sign of weakness. It's a signal. A message from your soul that says, you're done surviving, it's time to live. And living won't look like perfection. It'll look like waking up and choosing to try again. It'll look like failing forward. It'll look like crying and still creating, doubting and still daring, hurting and still hoping. So go ahead. Break. Not because you've lost, but because it's the only way to rebuild what was never true to begin with. The fire you forgot. There's a moment, after the breaking, after the numbness, when something stirs inside you. At first, it's small, a flicker, a pulse, like a candle fighting against the wind, fragile, quiet, easy to ignore, but it's there, and it's yours. It's not inspiration. It's not some motivational speech echoing in your mind. It's older than that, deeper. It's something primal, something real. It's the fire you forgot, the fire you were born with, long before the disappointments, long before the silence, long before the world taught you to play small and blend in. You carried this flame. You ran with it, danced with it, dreamed with it. But somewhere along the way, they told you it was too much, too intense, too loud, too unrealistic, too inconvenient. So you buried it. You smothered it with shoulds and somedays. You covered it with people-pleasing and perfectionism. You forgot how it felt to want something for yourself, not for approval, not for applause, not for acceptance, but just because your soul whispered, "This is who I am." And now, here it is again, not roaring, not demanding, just present, asking you to notice. And when you do, really do, it hits you. You've always had everything you needed. You've been looking for strength in books, in people, in quotes, in validation. But it's been living in your chest this whole time, waiting, silently burning, hoping you'd come back. And now that you have, even if it's just a glimpse, the game changes. Because once you remember your fire, you can't unsee it. You can't pretend you're powerless when your hands still carry sparks. You can't pretend you're broken when your heart still beats with rebellion. You can't go back to who you were before, because you're finally waking up to who you are. And that awakening? It's terrifying, because it means you can no longer blame the world for holding you back. It means the excuses expire. It means that from here on out, it's you versus your fear. You versus your comfort. You versus every lie you told yourself, just to feel safe. But it also means something else. It means freedom. The freedom to be messy, to try, to fall and rise and fall again, to not have it all figured out, but to trust the process anyway, to rebuild, not in spite of your pain, but because of it. Your fire isn't about rage or revenge. It's about returning to the child who believed, to the rebel who refused, to the creator who imagined, to the warrior who never stopped moving, even when no one saw them. So if you feel it, even faintly, lean in, feed it, protect it, because that fire, it's not just your energy, it's your identity. And no matter how long you've been in the dark, no matter how many times you've doubted yourself, that fire remembers. And now, it's calling you home. The climb begins alone. The hardest step is always the first one, not because it's physically difficult, but because it's lonely. When you decide to rise, to rebuild, to chase something real, don't expect a crowd. Don't expect applause. Don't expect understanding. Because truth is, most people won't get it. They'll say you've changed, that you're distant, that you're not who you used to be. And they're right. You're not. Because healing changes people. Pain remakes them. And once you've met the version of yourself that broke, you can never return to the version that settled. So you start climbing, quietly. There's no soundtrack, no cheering fans, just your breath, your heartbeat, and the weight of every fear. That whispers, turn back, but you don't, not this time, because deep down you know what's waiting at the top, not perfection, not fame, not some fantasy ending, but peace. Peace with yourself, with your story, with the storm you walked through and the fire you carried out, and maybe you're not ready for all of it yet. Maybe your legs still shake. Maybe your past still tugs at your sleeve. Maybe you still cry some nights when no one's looking, but you're still moving, and that matters, because the climb, it's not about speed. It's about integrity, the kind that says, even if it takes me twice as long, even if I lose people on the way, even if no one claps, I'm still going. And yes, you will lose people. Not everyone will like who you become when you stop dimming your light. Not everyone will stay when you stop catering to their comfort. Some people only love the version of you that didn't love yourself. Let them go. This journey isn't about convincing anyone else. It's about coming home, to you. And the truth is, no one else can walk it for you. No one else can face your doubts, silence your shame, forgive your past. That's your work, your battle, your birthright. But just because the climb begins alone doesn't mean it stays that way. Along the way, you'll meet others. Souls who carry their own scars. Warriors who bled and still rise. People who won't ask you to shrink, because they're busy expanding too. But before you can find them, you must find you. You must trust the silence enough to keep walking. You must believe in the summit, even when all you see is fog. You must move, not because someone's watching, but because something inside you says, this matters. And it does, because every step you take now is a step away from who you were told to be and toward who you really are. So climb, even if you're unsure, even if you're scared, even if your voice shakes when you say, I'm not giving up, especially then. Because this isn't the end of your story. It's the chapter where you start writing it for yourself. The return of your voice. There's a moment, somewhere along the climb, when you stop and realize something's changed. It's not the world. It's not the weight you carry. It's you. Your voice, the one you buried, silenced, questioned, is returning. Not the voice you used to please others, not the voice you filtered to avoid judgment, but the real one, raw, cracked, bold, honest, the one that doesn't ask for permission anymore. It doesn't shout, it speaks. And when it does, the air around you shifts. Because truth, when spoken without apology, has a vibration. It doesn't just sound different. It feels different. You remember how you used to stay quiet in rooms where your heart was screaming. You remember the ache of holding it all in, the thoughts, the pain, the dreams, just to keep the peace. You remember nodding when you should have spoken, smiling when you should have walked away, breaking inside just to look whole on the outside. But not anymore. Because silence, while safe, is suffocating when it's used to protect lies. And you're done lying to yourself. You're done pretending you don't care when you do. You're done calling your dreams silly just because someone else couldn't see them. You're done minimizing your magic just because it made others uncomfortable. Now, your voice is your weapon, and your healing, your map, and your declaration, and it's not just for others to hear. It's for you to believe, because once you speak your truth, you begin to believe in your power again, and the world, it reacts. Some people will pull away. Let them. Some will laugh. Let them. Some will try to twist your words, remind you of who you used to be, make you feel like speaking out is arrogance. It's not. It's remembrance of who you were before the silence, of who you are beneath the armor, of what you carry, not just pain, but purpose. Because your voice holds everything you've been through, and everything you're becoming. It doesn't have to be loud to be powerful. It just has to be yours. And when you speak, when you tell the truth about your story, your scars, your journey, you don't just free yourself. You free someone else too. Someone who's still quiet, still scared, still wondering if they're the only one hurting. They're not, because now they've heard you, and suddenly, they're not alone. That's the beauty of becoming real. It doesn't just transform you. It becomes a light, a signal. Mirror for others who forgot how to see themselves. So speak, not because it's easy, but because silence nearly stole your life, and your voice is how you take it back. Say the thing, write the truth, sing the pain, shout the joy, whisper the dreams. Just don't go quiet again. Not now, not after everything. You've earned this voice, you fought for it, you bled for it. And now, it's time to use it. The storm. You learned to dance. In you used to run from the storm every time. It showed up, the pain, the chaos, the fear. You'd freeze or flee. You thought survival meant staying dry, keeping safe, avoiding the lightning, but now, you're still standing. Soaked, yes. Scarred, no doubt, but alive, and not just alive, awake. The storm didn't break you. It revealed you. Because what you feared most wasn't the thunder outside. It was the storm inside, the truth you buried, the grief you ignored, the rage you swallowed just to stay polite, the dreams you postponed because no one else believed in them. You thought storms were punishment. You thought if you were just a little better, a little quieter, a little more together, the clouds would part and the sun would stay. But life doesn't work like that. The storm doesn't care about how good you've been. It comes to everyone. In different forms, in different seasons, and the truth is some storms don't pass. You just learn how to dance in them, not gracefully, not perfectly, but powerfully, with defiance, with grit. With a wild kind of freedom that says, I may not control the wind, but I still choose to move. You've learned how to stop waiting for rescue, How to stop praying for calm skies before you act. How to stop seeing pain as the enemy. Because pain? It's not your punishment. It's your pathway. It taught you to feel deeply, to see clearly, to strip away what was fake and stand naked in your truth. Vulnerable, yes, but unshakable. Now, you don't hide when it rains. You walk barefoot through it. You let it wash away everything that was never really yours. The shame, the guilt, the expectations that never fit. You don't apologize for the mud on your boots. You earned that, every step, every fall, every rise, and maybe you still have days when it feels too much. Days when your chest gets heavy again, when the old doubts whisper louder than the new truth. That's okay. Even the strongest souls still get struck, but now you don't fall apart. You pause. You breathe. You listen. Not to the noise outside, but to the strength inside. The one that says, "You've danced through worse. You'll dance through this too." You no longer wait for peace to come to you. You carry it within you, and that's the shift. That's when you stop surviving storms and start becoming the storm. Not the kind that destroys, but the kind that awakens. The kind that moves with purpose. The kind that shakes the ground beneath false beliefs. The kind that reminds others of what's possible. Because if you can rise, if you can dance in this rain, then someone else will believe they can too. So don't hide your thunder. Don't tame your sky. The world doesn't need a polished version of you. It needs the real one. Messy, bold, broken open, and alive. The legacy of your survival. Look at you, still here. Not because life made it easy, not because the pain vanished, but because something deep within you refused to stay down. Something ancient, something wild, something true. And now, it's time to understand why. This was never just about healing. It was never just about proving them wrong or escaping the past or fixing what got broken. It was about becoming someone who could walk through fire and come out lit from. Within, becoming someone who no longer waits to be saved. Because they now save themselves. Becoming someone who no longer carries their scars like shame, but wears them like armor. You thought your story was over the moment things fell apart. But the falling was the beginning. It forced you to confront every lie you believed about yourself. That you weren't enough. That you were too late. That you were too much for some and not enough for others. And now, you see the truth? You were never too broken. You were never too far gone. You were never weak for feeling, or failing, or falling. You were simply unfinished. And today, you close a chapter. Not because the pain didn't matter, but because you matter more. You've gone to war with your own mind. You've stood face to face with your demons. You've cried for people who never cried for you. You've forgiven those who didn't ask for it. And even harder, you've begun forgiving yourself. And now you're no longer building just for survival. You're building for something bigger, for purpose, for peace, for legacy. Because someone out there will one day stand where you stood, on the edge, in the dark, not sure they'll make it. And they won't need a lecture. They won't need a hero. They'll need a light, a voice, a story, a sign that says, "I've been where you are, and I'm still standing." That's your legacy. Not perfection, not performance, not the image they tried to paint of you. Your legacy is your truth. The fact that you shattered and rebuilt. That you were silenced and spoke anyway. That you were abandoned and still chose love. That you were hurt and still showed up for life. Messy, real, flawed, beautifully human. So as you walk forward, not with certainty but with clarity, remember this. You don't need to be fearless. You just need to be honest. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to keep walking. You don't need to be anyone else's version of strong. You just need to keep choosing yourself, again and again, until it's no longer a decision, but your way of life. Because this isn't the end. This is your return to your power, to your voice, to the fire you forgot, and the truth you reclaimed. And if this saved you, save someone else. Share it. Your story will help someone survive theirs, and that is everything.